wellbeing programs were never meant to be a one size fits all, right? We're all unique in our challenges, our opportunities, and what we want to improve on. And I think seeing these numbers with total health is just a testament to that we're, our participants are gravitating towards a program and engaging in a program when it is specific to them and what they want to achieve and what they're interested in and where they're ready to make a change.
Welcome, everybody, to the Navigate People First podcast. We really appreciate you joining us. Thank you for taking the time. Continue to subscribe and like if we are bringing you value. Today, Jeremy and I are back with another episode. This time, we're joined by Jenn Lowry, our Director of Product and Strategy here at Navigate. And we are really going to dig into something that we love, one of our favorite topics, and that is engagement. So we think about discussing increasing employee engagement, thinking about how well-being programs can help outcomes. We're going to dig into that today, and I'm so excited to join us. So let's get started. Here we go. So Jenn, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining Jeremy and I. It's awesome to have you. Let's start it out. Maybe give us a little bit of background on how you got to Navigate and what you've been doing in your career.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Jenn Lowry, Director of Product and Strategy for Navigate. I've been with Navigate for about a year. But came here of way of healthcare. So working in a healthcare space for 8 years prior to that, wearing multiple hats from account management to leading an incentive team to actually ending my career there in healthcare, being the director of engagement. Prior to that, I did actually work for a municipality leading their wellness program.
Fantastic. So we got to do icebreaker. So we've got our Navigate conversation cards that are available to everybody out there in the podcast world. So what is your go-to karaoke song? Jay?
I have actually never performed karaoke in my life.
We have microphones. Today is karaoke day here at the Navigate podcast.
That feels like a bonus subscription only episode.
Yes.
But if you could karaoke, what would it be?
I don't know. I don't have a lot of go-tos. Maybe something from Hamilton.
Oh,
I was thinking you're going to go Pearl Jam.
I could do Pearl Jam.
You could do Pearl Jam.
I could do Pearl Jam. I have a deep voice like that.
Jenn, what are you thinking?
okay. So I have two. I have a go-to karaoke song, and then I have a wish list karaoke song. My go-to karaoke song is "What's Up" for Non-Blondes. Great crowd involvement there. And then my wish list is "We Didn't Start the Fire," Billy Joel.
That's solid. That's solid. You could pull that off. Yeah. I think we can get this done. I would have to go with Coming to America, little Neil Diamond. Usually, sets a place on fire. So I go Neil Diamond. So there you go. Look maybe for some karaoke at the Navigate Summit in San Antonio this year in June. So let's dig into this. As we think about focusing on engagement drivers and creating well-being programs that obviously are attractive, that are accessible, that are impactful. Jenn, how do you start to believe about engagement and how we can help build a thriving workforce through engagement? And where does your head go on where that connects to what Navigate does and to the employer market and for our HR folks?
So engagement, well-being engagement is really that first step to getting people to start creating habits, establishing habits, and those habits turn into improving overall well-being. And so when I think about engagement, that's where my head is. How do we get them in the door so we can start establishing those habits? And then we have to really break down what impacts engagement. And that's where those engagement drivers come in.
Jay, when we talk about quantitative measures, qualitative measures, talk to me about maybe where we think about surveys and feedback and those pulse surveys. Where do you go on the qualitative side when it comes to measures?
You've got to have both, right? We all know that physical health measures, biometric risk statuses, all of those are important things that we need to do, but you can't not offset that data with something a little softer. You need to get that survey data. So you need to take advantage of pulse surveys. You need to take advantage of sentiment surveys. You need to take advantage of engagement surveys in general. essentially it rounds out your data set, right? There's not a whole lot of really actionable information except the health risk scores without it. So you've got your biometrics, you kind of understand how the population's trending, but that doesn't allow you to take action necessarily. You need to understand your population before you just sort of bull in the china shop action it without knowing what the sentiment behind that is.
When I think about quantitative measures, I think about the frequency of interaction. I think about obviously completion rates. I think about user patterns. So much data that we have to be able to dive in and actually listen to the employee that's in our system and seeing what they're engaging in. Jenn, you've got drivers when it comes to engagement. Talk to us about the drivers that we are incorporating into our software and into our programs.
Sure. So those engagement drivers over the past year, we've really dove into our own data set for our clients, our book of business, to really understand what are the key strategies and tactics that influences engagement so that we can provide those recommendations to our clients to positively influence that data. So when we looked at our clients that were achieving optimal engagement, they had leadership support to support their initiatives around their well-being program, an active wellness committee, somebody who is really championing the wellness initiatives, putting the messages out there to their population, getting them engaged, an effective communication program that utilizes a multi-channel approach, but also tells the story of not just what the program is, but also why they should be participating. And then also community and charitable donation, really helping people connect to their purpose and the mission of that program.
You make a really good point on the communication side. I want to go there. Clear and transparent communication of the purpose of the program, the benefit of the program, what are the available resources. To me, that seems like an X factor of engagement. Jay, when you think about communication in the technology space, efficiencies behind that, maybe touch on that a little bit, how that communication, that promotion of the program really is a potentially an X factor.
I think for us, we provide a tremendously high level of communication as a baseline. And I would say that's probably higher than what others are doing in the marketplace. But then it's up to you, our client, and our account management team to work with you on understanding the specifics, because there's only so far our baseline can go. Our baseline will do all of the appropriate reminders. It'll tell you what you should be doing and when you should be doing it. But the real power of a really strong communication program is one that's tailored to your participants, one that understands the culture of the organization, and one that's pushing to achieve the goals and values that are aligned with the organization. And that's where the technology comes into play, right? So we've got a baseline of communication that's going to go out to every participant, that are personalized to them, that are triggered based on things they're experiencing in the platform or they're completing in the platform. But the utilization of what we sort of colloquially call ad hoc communication allows you, the HR professional, to target and segment and personalize communications beyond what our baseline is. Every single one of our clients should be taking advantage of that because it is a tailored message. A lot of people don't have those capabilities. Now, they have access to Outlook, they can send to distribution lists, but what they don't have the ability to do is target, women over 45 at a certain location that have not completed X survey and say, hey, we'd really appreciate it if you've done this. Or, your age and gender screening is not there yet. That ability is something that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of the way that they can really push an engagement program forward.
That kind of leads to, we talk about personalization side of things and variety, right? So Jenn, when you think about offering a very diverse range of well-being activities, being able to cater to different interests and needs, how do you see that as a driver when it comes to engagement?
Yeah, I think whenever you partner that personalization side, that data-driven personalization side of the incentive design or well-being design, and partner it with those engagement drivers, that's really where those optimal results are seen. Because now, again, we've kind of looked at the secret sauce of engagement. We understand what drives them there, but how do you make sure that people aren't just quote unquote participating, that they actually have their heart in it, that they find purpose and they feel that they can make a difference in their own lives That's where that engagement happens. But that's also where the personalization is key. It's unique to the person, what their goals are, what their values are, where they want to go for their own journey. It's really about meeting the person where they are with that data-driven personalization.
And that even goes back to the company too. I think that's one of the things we talk about is the personalization to the company. What resonates with the company and what they would like to do as an organization to connect their culture, their purpose, their benefit plan, and really cater to that employee experience that they're trying to create. Because again, that's another driver, right? When we think about the employee experience and creating that positive support environment, how do you guys feel, or what do you feel like the data is coming back to us and saying, here's how people are engaging and how are we supporting that culture of care?
Well, I think what you're picking up on is the future of well-being. And I think the definition of well-being has been broadening for a long time since, 20, 30 years ago when it started as just biometrics. Now we're talking about holistic programs and then even expanding beyond that. So nowadays, if your well-being program isn't addressing the employee where they're at, and that means not necessarily physical activity or nutrition, that means financial well-being, that means mindfulness, that means mental health, that means social community interaction, all of those. That means how they interact with their managers and how they interact with the people at work. Do they have friendships and lasting relationships? And generally, you're seeing the definition of holistic well-being even expanding beyond to what a traditional well-being or a new school well-being program is. Are we going to see mentoring? Are we going to see career literacy and counseling? Are we going to see, personal development pathways?
Yeah.
And to me, I look at that and I say, the line between what was well-being and what is the employee experience is being blurred. And I think we're starting to see more and more of that with our clients and with HR professionals going, the well-being platform is a good way to drive employee experience.
It helps create that emotional connection.
It does.
If you think about generally defining employee engagement as this multifaceted concept, being able to have that sense of belonging and that sense of connection to the organization that you work with is so important. And so that's where I think about the configurability of the organizations, what they're looking to personalize for their organization, what they're trying to put out, what they're trying to incorporate inside an individual to cater to their individual needs. That's where true engagement and engagement equation is adding different variables the longer we are working in this industry, which is, I think, a very extremely positive thing. Jenn, what do you think about?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting to, build those connections. Interpersonal well-being is really kind of a term that's come up in the trends lately of really connecting people to what matters for them. But again, that's where we're starting to see the lines blurred, that it's not just about how I'm performing at work. It's not just about my physical or my mental or financial, but it's about my home life. It is about how I'm interacting as a caregiver again, and we have to be able to support that.
In my mind, true engagement goes beyond participation, and we have a very strong definition of engagement and navigate and participation. Jenn, go ahead. When you think about that, how do we differ in the industry when it comes to the numbers that are put out, participation versus engagement? We're pretty tough on ourselves when it comes to getting people engaged. You want to expand on that?
And you talk about it so I don't go on my engagement rant.
Okay. Well, I think we have to start with participation and engagement is really a change in the employee's mindset. That's really the difference. And participation is, I'm doing this because I have to. Maybe there is a reward, or maybe there's a surcharge. It's a tobacco cessation surcharge, and that's why they're participating. There's no intention to actually create habits, improve their well-being. They're not connecting to the actual intention of that well-being program. With engagement, they're actually intentionally moving in that program. They're looking at that program, identifying, again, where they connect, what they value to, where they can make a difference in their life. And so that's really where our definition of engagement comes from. It's not just scrolling on a page or participating in one thing, or even just completing that incentive program. We're looking at that continuous engagement in those meaningful activities over time.
We've seen far too many engagement numbers that are, let's say, inflated, and that they're counting things like, did you read a notification on your app? Or did you Did you look at an email? Or something is even as complex as did you complete the incentive program? Those are all good measures of whether or not people are doing something in the program. They don't mean true engagement. I think that's what, if someone's giving you an engagement number that doesn't include a wide variety of activities that can indicate behavior change, or at least the precursors to behavior change, then I think you're missing out.
And participation is not a bad thing. We want people to participate because that's how they get in the front door. But how we engage them once they're in the front door is what really matters. And that's where that behavior change comes in.
So Jen, we've talked about program design. We've talked about employee experience, employee engagement. How does incentives complement engagement that you've seen?
Sure. Incentives itself is really reward based. And what is somebody getting from the action that they're actually doing? So you think of that as very extrinsic motivation. Again, people are going to get in the front door maybe because they do have a premium reduction, or they're going to get gift cards or some type of reward for participation, which is great. However, we need to make sure that that's transitioning to that intrinsic motivation, and that's where the program design comes in. Incentive reward is important. I don't want to abandon the idea that does play a part in incentive design, and it does need to be an amount that is going to move that population and get them in the door. We've done some analysis looking at our book of business to understand what is the reward that actually does result in onboarding and optimal engagement. And when we looked at it, certainly any reward over $1,000 is going to get people moving, right? I think all three of us, it would get the three of us moving. However, when we looked kind of downscale of that reward, a reward of $500 also results in that optimal onboarding and engagement.
I think there's also a floor to consider as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Know that there's a minimum value that's gonna push the needle. I think that's somewhere around $100, $150 in our data set. So where you want to have is a minimum of $150 at least. But if you can't afford that $500, that $1,000 range, you can see huge numbers. You can see a lot of people getting involved in the platform. But when you talk about engagement, someone would say, why isn't your incentive an engagement driver? To me, it's simply, that's just getting people in the door. That's not going to lead to someone changing their behavior. That's going to lead to someone participating in the program.
Yeah, and perhaps not just rely on that, right? And that's where that, adding a little bit more to the experience of the platform, having multiple resources there, having it more personalized to the individual will help drive that experience beyond that extrinsic reward that we're talking about.
Sure. It's going through the motions, and them going through the motions, again, depending on the incentive design, if those motions get them to things where they can start to think through, how is my healthcare or my own health impacted by my decisions? Maybe that's video courses. Maybe that's challenges. Maybe it's something within the resource hub. And if that can start to get their wheels turning, them thinking about how they can improve their health, and that drives action, that's what we want. But just completing the incentive program just for the sake of getting the reward is participation. And to your point, I think also the reward itself will depend on the industry. And of course, Navigate does look at our book of business by industry. A reward amount of $150 might be enough for a manufacturing client and those employees in a rural area. Whereas if we have a law firm, that probably won't get that population moving.
It also goes back to relevant incentives, but also relevant content. So we think about content and that personalization of content and really driving that content. Jen, where does your head go when it comes to the technology and having relevant content and making sure that that's up to date? Talk to me about relevant content when it comes to engagement as well.
Right. I think in today's world that we live in, content is available at our fingertips, whether that's within social media, within a Google search. Content is readily available. So in a well-being space, we have to make sure that that content is fresh, relevant, available in multiple modes or modalities, from short form, long form, video, audio. Again, we have to make sure it's fresh for the user and relative to what they want to achieve. And I would also say, looking at content, we have to be able to have a strategy that really fits the goals for everyone, looking across all 8 pillars of well-being, maybe even looking at the workplace well-being. And again, we could expand upon that, but I do think it has to be a robust library for somebody to be able to engage in that.
And Jamie, I know you're really passionate about the holistic side of well-being and those 8 pillars. Maybe talk to us about the success when it comes to making sure that it's relevant content that's personalized and how you can, maybe deeply connect with someone when it comes to one of those 8 pillars that we have at Navigate.
Yeah, and to be perfectly frank, it's a huge challenge for us, right? Knowing that we've got to go beyond the bounds of physical activity and nutrition, and that we've got to be able to provide interesting content that people are going to react to, not just sort of read, but also take value out of and process and understand and take it to heart. So that's a huge challenge for navigators to provide that and to face the challenges that you were talking about, understanding that we need different forms, long form, short form video, short video, TikTok and all that. So it's a huge challenge for us, but I think it's one that we've got a pretty aggressive plan to tackle here in the next couple of months and all throughout this year. And ultimately what you see is results in the program, because everything we're doing is here to help a participant drive a healthier lifestyle. And so holistic approach to well-being at its core is finding something that's going to engage someone. And it doesn't have to be the traditional stuff. It doesn't have to be physical activity or nutrition. For example, we've got lots of good balance content. We think of balance, we think of it's kind of a wide topic, right? Could mean work-life balance. It could mean how you're interacting with your family. It could be a little bit of a mental health focused tip to it. Someone out there is going to find value in that content as opposed to what we're doing in a different program. And that's why we take that broad, holistic approach to what we're doing, is that we want to find something that'll engage everybody.
Yeah, I'm glad you went there, because once we think about all the things when it comes to RB balance, mindfulness, mental health, once we have folks there, let's keep them there. And, that vertical integration, that frictionless, user experience is so important. So being able to have those engaging resources and tools when it comes to mental health. I think about our relationship with Psych Hub, being able to have some digital therapeutics at the ready, wherever you want. And it's right there on our platform. You're not bouncing out and stuff.
I think the other thing, key consideration with any content strategy is taking into consideration where they are in that trans-theoretical model of change, right? Pre-contemplation, contemplation, and action is very different content for the user. Think of somebody who is in the early stages of financial planning. If we were to just provide content around investment, right, they might abandon that completely and really lose interest in that because they don't feel they can connect to it because they're not there yet. But if we were to provide something around just making a budget or easy budgets, they actually might relate to that a little bit more.
Yeah, and you saw that with all of our favorite 401k vendors out there. They started that 10 years ago. They were putting financial tools in the marketplace and realizing that the vast majority of people out there were still struggling with things like budget and credit card debt, and that 401k and investment literacy was not where they were. So not only do we have a wide variety of topics we need to cover, but we also have a wide variety of places where people are in that journey. And to Troy, your point is that we can't cover everything. And we're really good at covering the intros and the basics and the medium level depth. But there's always going to be a need to take one step further, whether it be mental health services, whether it be financial learning, literacy, coaching, whether it be, what have you. There's always going to be a next step. And that's why we put together that personalization that we see in total health, is to get people to that next step, not just within our own ecosystem of content and resources, but also out to the resources that you've already got in your benefit program, that all of our clients can now get a much greater activation, utilization of those things than they've seen.
Right. And what a great benefit, because those resources that the employer have is so complex. And, the literacy there is so low. Even myself, when you look at some of those benefit guides that we see, 67 pages, myself, it's very overwhelming to really understand, where do I start in this journey? So that's where that that personalization does come in, that we're looking at. When somebody takes that total health survey, we're looking at what are their risks, where are they ready to make a change, and also what are they interested in. and those resources can be recommended to them for that jumping off point.
Engagement levels for overall book of business and Navigate versus engagement numbers when it comes to total health. Maybe dive into that a little bit. We've got wonderful data over the past couple of years. It's really driving some decisions for us and for our clients. Let me dig into that book of business versus our total health.
Engagement in general, we're seeing right now about a 56% average engagement, which is incredible because when you look at the national average, and national average is, of course, a little bit gray as far as how they define it. National average is 40% participation. So we're far exceeding that with 56% engagement. When we look at total health, again, that personalized approach to a well-being program, we're seeing 74% engagement, which is just incredible. And not only are we seeing an uptick in that engagement, we're also seeing an uptick on onboarding. So people getting in the door is much higher than our book of business as well.
That's 74% is a monster number for us. And especially when you consider our book of business engagement was up 2% year over year already.
And how we define engagement.
How we define engagement, correct.
Which is a lot more than just looking at communications.
And Jay, when we talk about highly engaged, maybe drive down a little bit on engaged to the highly engaged folks that we're working with.
Yeah. So not only when we measure this, do we look at the baseline of what we consider engaged. So just to back up a little bit, our engagement equation takes into things like what you're doing in the platform, whether or not you're syncing devices and tracking data on a regular basis. Are you logging in on a regular basis? Are you utilizing the features that we want you to be taking advantage of? Are you participating in challenges? Are you watching video courses? Are you completing your program? And if so, to what degree? So we've got quite a bit that goes into that engagement equation. And then we've got levels within that we say, okay, at this level, we consider you engaged. But at the highest levels, we consider highly engaged. That number, Jen, is 34% book of business. And that's up another point year over year for us. The number of highly engaged participants in our total health programs, 61%.
When we think about numbers like that, and those program designs, the qualitative measures, we're going beyond engagement, which is wonderful. And we're looking at behavior change. We're looking at health risk reduction. And we're also seeing how we're navigating people to the other benefits that they have at the organization. So then we're able to look at that and say, hey, we can help even a better plan design because we see what usage is. And so when we look at the full spectrum, engagement is growing and there's more variables there. And for me, that's where we can start to look and say, we can help employees set personal goals. We can track their progress. We can strive for improvement. And that's where we believe that we're getting higher frequency, and that means deeper engagement.
Not only are we getting participants active and changing the behaviors, but we're taking advantage of the resources that are already in place to help us do it. The people that are out there wanting to change behaviors, but don't have that direct line into the participant experience the way we do. The diabetes, the health coachings, the disease managements, the financial literacy people, we're bringing them into the mix and we're delivering participants to the front door to take advantage of those resources in a way that they've never been able to see before.
And Jeremy, I know you talked about the history of wellness and how we've really seen that shift over time, but I think wellbeing programs were never meant to be a one size fits all, right? We're all unique in our challenges, our opportunities, and what we want to improve on. And I think seeing these numbers with total health is just a testament to that we're, our participants are gravitating towards a program and engaging in a program when it is specific to them and what they want to achieve and what they're interested in and where they're ready to make a change.
Well, shameless plug, but if you're interested in a very concrete example of how successful total health can be, tune in for the next episode. We're going to be talking to our friends at Prisma Health, who not only have stellar engagement rates, but they have stellar results when it comes to their biometrics, when it comes to activating users on their benefits. We're going to be joined by a couple of our good friends from Prisma to talk about all the success they've seen in their wellness programs.
Yeah, they knocked it out of the park.
Engagement is more about satisfaction or happiness. It's about motivation. It's about purpose. It's about a sense of fulfillment when it comes to connecting the dots of your company culture, the personalization to the individual needs, and really taking time to listen to the employee and really bring them into the equation, engage that feedback for a better employee experience, and using well-being as that tip of the sword. So Jenn, we've talked about the 4 engagement drivers: leadership support, wellness committee, community, communications. Maybe talk to us about somebody that maybe isn't getting great engagement. What could they do first, or what should they be thinking about to maybe drive that engagement?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because you certainly can't boil the ocean, right? You may not be able to start all of those engagement drivers at the same time. That's a lot to do within a short period of time to really achieve that optimal engagement. But when we looked at the data, the one tactic, that one strategy that really stood out to make the biggest difference was leadership support. So getting that leadership buy-in, really getting them talking about the wellness program, the leaderships themselves actually participating in that program, bringing that messaging to town halls or within emails is really key to that engagement. So when we looked at that data, that was the biggest driver if somebody was to do just that.
So when you think about other tools and resources that are available that perhaps we haven't navigated or you've seen people use for engagement, talk to me about some tools and resources that are available to folks.
Yeah, we're really excited. So again, we did that data analysis over this past year to really identify what were the 4 key engagement drivers. And from that, we've built out toolkits for each of those drivers. So what does it mean when you actually implement leadership support? Is it that you have a CEO letter that goes out to the organization about that well-being program? Is it key talking points at a town hall? Is it bullet points every single month that a leader could send out to their organization? What is an active wellness committee? How do you form an active wellness committee? Do you have applications? What are the agenda topics? So for each of those engagement drivers, we've built toolkits that not only our account managers can use in partnering with our clients, but we're actually giving those resources to our clients to be able to implement themselves.
How are we using data for good and helping data drive decisions? And that's what we're about. Love it.
Yep.
So Jenn, this is your best day ever. Well, wait a minute. Maybe not your best day ever. Hey, Jenn, it's the best day ever segment within your first podcast. I know you've been listening to podcasts, so you know the best day ever is just, something good or something that you want to put out there that maybe to celebrate or some good in your life. What's the best day ever?
So at the beginning of the year, I made a New Year's resolution to myself to be more in the moments, and not just in the big moments, but in the small moments with my family. So being present, right? Putting the phone away, or when my son, who is almost 13 at this point, the dreaded teenager years are coming, when he comes up to me and says, "Hey, I want to cuddle on the couch with you," saying yes more than not right now. Certainly, I'm not a cuddler. So this weekend, I had a really great day with my daughter. And it actually was just one of those small moments that I can look back on and appreciate. It was late in the evening. We had to pick up my mom and her husband at the airport. 10:30 at night, my daughter wants to go. The flight was delayed. So how do you entertain a kid in an empty airport who is 6 years old on a flight delay? And we played The Floor is Lava for about 30 minutes while we waited on their flight to come in. And just, again, I look back on that. It was so much fun. I'm usually not the fun parent. I can admit that. But just looking back, I know that's going to be a moment that I appreciate that. And hopefully she can look back on and appreciate my involvement there too.
The floor is lava.
Yes.
That will
around the airport.
Love it. That's a good one to put in the toolkit. That's good. I'm going to need that later. Jay, what do you got, pal?
I have a cousin, and she and her partner have been trying to conceive for a long time. And we just found out last night on social media, and they've been going through all kinds of treatments, and it's been a real battle for them. And I found out last night that they're going to have a kid. So
that's awesome.
Incredible.
Really
Congratulations.
That's awesome. Well, my best day ever is going to take a little bit of a twist this time. If you follow Navigate, you know that our hearts have been pretty heavy lately because of the passing of our beloved friend and colleague, Brian Lackey. This is definitely not the best day ever. But later today, as we're filming this podcast, the Navigate family is going to get together to celebrate Brian. And Brian was not only an extraordinary leader here, he was a obviously an integral part of our success and our executive team, but he was a devoted husband and a dad. And he was a cherished member of our Navigate family for over 7 years. And he will be missed dearly. But I will tell you this, it's the best day that Brian came into our lives at Navigate. His spirit will live on with us. His love for adventure and openness to others, his clumsiness. His nickname was the White Rhino because he could bump his head or knee or shoulder pretty much anywhere. And his dedication to kindness. Brian always led with kindness. And though it is not easy, the value that we bring to others and connecting is a powerful one. And Brian was a powerful force at Navigate, and we will miss him dearly. But we're going to celebrate him with everyone here at Navigate tonight, and I'm happy we were able to do that. So that's a twist on best day ever. But know that Brian was part of our family, and it will always be. His spirit lives on. I hope we brought value to you today. Please continue to subscribe, like our podcast, give us suggestions. We do listen. We're grateful for you for listening and being engaged with us today. And thank you for what you do for everyone out there, and continue to do good for others and stay safe. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.